Hi everyone, Ryan here, Ion Capital Solutions. Listen, the cost of trial and error is time and money. Okay, that's the bottom line. We all know that to be true. We've all heard the expression time is money. But when conducting your surveys and business funding, it is absolutely paramount that you focus your attention and your conversations on the people that are worth your time. Far too many loan brokers out there are simply sending out an application, asking for bank statements, and forwarding to the lender. You will not make money doing that. I'm sorry, it's just the truth. And if you believe it's that simple, you're wrong. And if you think your lender is going to appreciate you sending garbage files over, they're not. Okay? And how long can you hang on? Right? How long can you go through that trial and error period? How long can you waste your precious resources, time and money? You simply can't. Okay? So when conducting a survey, whether it's real estate investment funding or in this case, in today's video, business funding, okay, you have to be thorough. So let's take a look at what I mean by that. Well, to begin with, we need to conduct a complete survey. It's not enough to just say, do you want money? How much are you grossing a month? Right? When do you need the money? And can you afford it? We can't just take what the client says at face value. We need to underwrite the bank statements. We need to do the math for ourselves anyway. We're going to get into that in a moment. But we need a full, complete survey. Right? And what that means is we're pre-qualifying before chasing documents. Okay? We're pre-qualifying before chasing documents. We're not saying to the client, give me your application, give me your bank statements. Oh, you want a term loan or you want an SBA, or okay, I'm going to need a P&L and corresponding balance sheet. I'm going to need a tax return and Schedule C. I'm going to need this. I'm going to need that. You don't want to go down that road. You want to qualify. Okay? And if they're worth the conversation, they get to the next phase, which is affordability. If the affordability is there, then you get to product selection. Then you get to doc chase. And then you have to understand and go through those documents yourself before you submit to the lender, right? You can't just send things to the lender and assume that it's going to make money because the client tells you they're a millionaire. It just doesn't work like that. It is simplistic if you know what you're doing. It is simplistic if you have experience. And it all starts with the pre-qualifying survey, okay? Now, asking the right questions is paramount on the survey. You have to know, and we're going to look at that in a moment, okay? But it's not just about asking the right questions. It's about understanding the answers and what they mean, what's acceptable, what's not, and paying attention to the answer and finding something that might be a deal killer or something that should lead to you asking more questions because you know something sounds fishy, something doesn't sound right. If you don't know how to do this, you don't know what a good file sounds like. And if you don't know what a good file sounds like, how are you going to know what a good file looks like? And how many are you going to sift through before you finally find one that funds? You have to have a solid process here so that you're only spending time on hard files that make sense, that are going to make you money. Because we already know, out of the files that come in, the few fund. But the better you are at qualifying up front, the more files you have that have a better chance of funding. And the brokers that fund deals regularly, they know this. They understand this. And this is what we can teach you here at Ion Capital Solutions, okay? Because you can learn from our scars. We can expedite that process for you, right? But you have to disqualify. The goal of any underwriting team working for a lender is to disqualify, okay? They're looking for any reason to kill the deal. And the reason they're doing that is because it's risk. They're putting their money out the door and taking a risk that it'll be paid back. How do you know the client won't default and then your money's gone? So they're constantly looking for a reason to disqualify, constantly looking for a reason why they should not do business with that client. And if they can't find a reason, we have a winning deal. If you think like the lender's underwriting team, you're that much closer to a funded deal. And you're not wasting your time, right? But you have to be able to do the math for yourself. That's the bottom line. You've got to be able to do the math for yourself. You have to have your calculator out. You've seen other videos we've done. If not, check through the channel. You can see where you can do little tricks, use little formulas to figure out what they've received in the past, what they're willing to accept in the future, whether or not there's affordability there in the month. We'll take a look at that coming up here in the next slide, okay? But you have to be able to do the math for yourself to quickly ascertain whether or not there's a deal on the table, whether or not there's affordability there, whether or not this is something that you should be wasting your time on in the first place. Because if not, you just hear hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. I want 100K, I want 200K. And then you start adding up your points and counting your pennies, right? you have unrealistic emotional ideas about the deal, right? You're already choosing on Amazon what you're going to buy, and you're just not even close to a commission. And so many brokers fail because of that, right? And so value your time is the point. Value your time. Okay? And so whoever you're talking to on the phone, if they sound like a whale, if they sound like they're making all this money, have sharp teeth. Act like you've been there before. Fake it till you make it. Right? Okay, you're on the phone with a tycoon. You're on the phone with a millionaire. So what? He needs or she needs you to get the funding they need for their business, because they're not stupid enough to risk their own capital. Right? And so you have got to act like you've been there before. You've got to ask the hard questions. And when they put pressure on you and when they want something outside of the norm, you can't immediately go into customer service mode where you don't want to upset your client. You want to give the best customer service. It's not how this works. They need to go through your survey. They need to check your boxes. Nobody is special. And if you have sharp teeth with the client, you let them know what time it is, they're going to respect you. They're going to follow you because nobody else is willing to do that. Right? And it comes from knowing what you're doing, knowing what you're talking about. That's going to set you apart. Okay, so let's take a look at the business funding survey and get an idea of not just the questions we should ask, but the answers and what those answers could mean. Okay, so first of all, don't go crazy reading this. Okay, listen to the narrative here. Okay, it all starts with the date and time. We need to know when we're having these conversations. We need to know so that the next time we talk to the client, a month, a quarter, half a year goes by, you say, well, we spoke last time at this time on this date, whatever. And during that time, your kid had their playoff soccer game or whatever it was. Or they're a hockey fan. The Rangers were playing the Islanders that night, right? Or whatever it was. So they remember you. They know that you know about them. They know that you know that what their regular borrowing habits are, what their interests are, what was going on with their business at the time. And that makes you memorable. And you're setting yourself apart. So it all begins right there. That's something you might overlook. Don't overlook it. We need a full survey, right? The merchant's full name. We need all the names associated with the application. And we need it up to 50% of ownership or more. It depends on the lender. Maybe they want more than 50% ownership. You have to know what your lender guidelines say, right? And then we need all of those names. If you get an application from somebody who owns 15% of the business, and you write down his name's Joe Schmo, he owns 15%, that's not acceptable. He fills out the application, that's not acceptable. The lender's just going to come right back. We need additional ownership on the application. Now you're slowing down your deal. And the lender doesn't want to put up with it. The client doesn't want to put up with it. Every time they give you something, you come back, you ask for more. It's driving them nuts because you're not conducting a proper survey. You're not gathering the information right the first time. Right? The name of the business. There's a difference between the legal name of the business and the DBA. We need both. We need both. Contact information. We want to know the business line. We want to know the extension number. We want to know the mobile personal number because the odds are they're getting called by a million brokers, right? And you need to stand apart and you need different ways of getting in touch with them. If you're constantly getting stuck at the gatekeeper, how are you going to get through the boss? When you finally get through the boss, you better make sure you have that route again so you don't have to go through the gatekeeper. And if you do, you better become friendly with that gatekeeper, right? You need good information. Maybe there's multiple decision makers. Get their information. Figure out who it is. Maybe they want you to work with their vice president of funding, right? Okay, get their contact information. Don't keep bothering the secretary. Don't keep bothering the owner if he wants you to work with somebody else, right? Simple, but reality is most people don't think that way, and as a result, they keep tripping themselves up, right? So let's dig into the meat and potatoes of this, all right? So what's the nature of the business? Well, we need a list of the, not so much who we want to do business with, but who we don't want to do business with, right? And you can take a look at your lender's guidelines to figure those things out. Now here at Ion, we have lists for our team members, right? But the bottom line is, stay away from lawyers. They're default artists. They just read the contract, they look for the loophole, and they don't pay back. Right? Stay away from seasonal businesses unless you're in that season. And when you give that seasonal business money, expect it to be a very short term because they can't pay back year round. They're not bringing in money in the other seasons. Right? So a lawn care service that makes very little money, they're going to default. Right? If you give them a 6-month loan at high interest, they can't afford it. Right? Maybe if you get them right at the start of the spring and they happen to be cash flowing, they have a lot of crews, but odds are not. If it's a trucking business, right? who lives in the mountains where it gets really icy in the wintertime. They have a really hard time. Trucks are going down. You have 4 trucks, one goes down, that's 25% of revenue gone. Suddenly they can't pay back. Right? You need to start thinking about these things, right? So nature of the business is very important. You can't just give money to any old business, right? How many years have they been in operation? You won, right now during COVID, you won at least 2 years. Used to be just 1 year. There's even really high risk lenders who would do 6 months. Right, given what happened with COVID and everything, you want somebody who's been in business for a while. You want somebody who's regularly filling up their bank account. Okay, stay away from the startups. You don't even bother with startups. Okay. Bankruptcies, foreclosures, liens, judgments. This is important. Okay, this is important. It's not enough to just ask and they say no and you move on. These are deal killer questions. Okay. Yeah, I had a bankruptcy, but that was a long time ago. That's not a good enough answer, right? Well, has the bankruptcy been satisfied? When was that? When was it discharged? Was it at least a couple of years ago? Because if it was recent, you're not getting funded. If it's open, you're not getting funded. Was it COVID related? There's products out there for that, okay? But you have to know, right? And then let's say there were balances, there were judgments, right? Did you stop payments? Do you currently have loans that you've stopped payments on? Have you defaulted? If those aren't satisfied, if those aren't paid off, even my most high-risk lender who's willing to fund a default merchant won't touch it. Would you? If it was you and it was your buddy and he wanted to borrow money from you, but your other best friend told you the last time I lent him money, he never paid me back. You gonna lend him money? Of course not. Why would the lender do that? You have to think, right? And you need to get to the bottom line. You need to figure this stuff out, because if you don't conduct a proper survey and you go through docs and you submit to the lender and you get to the end and then all of a sudden last minute you find out this is a default merchant, you're not going to fund the deal. And all that time was wasted because you didn't conduct a proper survey, because you didn't have sharp teeth, because you weren't getting to the bottom line, because you were stuck in customer service mode with a smile on your face and you want to be all friendly. Okay? Business funding is a shark-infested waters. It's not a friendly atmosphere. It will be friendly if you know what you're doing, you know what you're talking about. Okay? But you've got to be able to do the math. You got to know what to ask. You got to know what the answers mean, right? So let's carry on. Okay? So with that being said, how much capital are you looking to secure, right? Well, first of all, understand shopping needs versus actual needs, right? Like, oh, I'm in the market, I'm taking a look. All they're going to do is get an offer from you and then shop it around and try and bring it down and down and down, because they know that they're not going to borrow again for maybe 6 months. Versus, I need the money in 2 weeks. We need to expand immediately. We need more inventory, whatever it is. We've got to find out. We've got to find out, right? And we don't understand what they got last time, so we know what they're willing to accept. If they say, I got a bank loan, 4%. They're not going to take a cash advance. They're not going to take a term loan. They're not going to, they don't, and that's how you make your money, on big commissions, on high interest loans. That's business funding. So you're talking to somebody who wants bank rates, move on, right? But if you're talking to somebody who regularly borrows, you got a daily payment last time, a weekly payment last time, a 6-month term, a 12-month term, 35% interest, a 40% interest, that's what you want. That's who you want to be talking to, right? So it's very important that you understand these things. Right? So everybody wants the long term. Everybody wants the term loan. Everybody wants the monthly payment. But there's a road to qualification, and they got to check certain boxes to get there. So if they got the daily today, okay, we can get you a weekly. We don't know if they'll get it. We're not lying. We can get it for them, but they got to qualify. And if not, we can show them why they don't qualify. We can help them understand why they got something that wasn't favorable last time. And we can get them something better down the road if they listen. Right? And this is how you get control of the client. This is how you hook them in. This is why they want to do business with you, because you're dangling that carrot, that better future. That's what they want. But you got to know their past if you're going to help them in the future. Right? So something to think about. Something to think about for sure. Use of funds, by the way, very, very important. Use of funds is very, very important. Debt consolidation is a negative use of funds. Right? Payroll, negative use of funds. Even stability to cash flow, negative use of funds. Okay? They want working capital. They want to expand. They want to grow. Business is going great. That is what we want to tell our lender, right? And that's the kind of people we want to be working with. Somebody who's just in deep, deep trouble. They have all kinds of debt there. That's a default merchant just waiting to happen. Yes, there's cases where you can do consolidations. Yes, you can use assets and real estate to help to pay off a bunch of loans or whatever it is, but you got to be able to do the math. Are they halfway through their term? Is there a payoff net situation there? Are they completely over leveraged? How much of their monthly gross is going out the door in payments? The lender's only going to allow 16 to 18% of the monthly gross going out. Are they over leveraged? Are they paying 25% of their monthly gross in payments? There's no room for affordability, right? Let's say the client is grossing $50,000 a month, but they have $5 million in assets. They want $1 million. You think you have a deal. They can't afford $1 million. They don't make enough money to pay that money back. You have to understand these things, right? Can't tell you how many of our new brokers in training come to us and say, oh, I got a client, he's got $5 million in assets, he wants $1 million. They get all excited. Slow down. You need to know what you're talking about. You need to know what's possible. Even the client has their head in the clouds. They don't understand what's possible. It's your job to get to the bottom line of what is and isn't possible, what is worth your time, what is going to happen or isn't going to happen. And if you're emotional and you're all stuck in the fairy tale, you are not going to succeed in this business. Okay? Here at Ion, we can help you through that journey. We can make sure that you're focusing on good files, that you're realistic. You're not counting your chickens before they hatch. Okay? So, something else that's very important is what are their regular borrowing habits, right? It's a good question to try and uncover what kind of loans they have, how many they have, something we're going to get to in a moment, right? But you want to get to that bottom line because they're not forthcoming. Talking to these clients on the phone, they will lie. They will try and hide things because they're afraid of you. They fear you. They think that you're the lender. You are not the lender. You are their broker. It is your job to assist them to get the funding they need. It's you and them versus the lender is how you want to view it, certainly how you want them to view it. They need to give you the whole story, the real picture. If they're lying, if they're hiding things from you, if we're hiding things from the lender, ultimately the lender's underwriting team will find out. They will not fund the deal. Last minute it will get killed and it will be an entire waste of time. You cannot let that happen. You have to have sharp teeth. You hear me say it over and over again. You have got to have sharp teeth. Okay. Also, how much are they producing in the last 6 months? We have to understand the difference between qualified deposits and monthly gross. Oh, I'm doing $150,000 a month. Okay, how much you want? I want $150,000. Okay, sounds good. Let's take a look at the bank statements. I don't want to send them at the bank statements, or I'm only going to send you 2 months, or whatever it is. Right? Wrong. Right? Or they don't want to send the month to date because it's past the 10th day of the month. Wrong. We need the whole picture. We need to see what's going on here. We need to look at qualified deposits. If they're moving money from one account to the next account trying to make it look like revenue, that's not revenue. That's not revenue. If they're editing their bank statements to look like there's more than there actually is, that's fraud. You've got to understand the difference between this, right? Because maybe they're saying they're doing $150K a month. Maybe they're only doing like $35K a month, $50K a month. Maybe they had one really high month, but the other few months they sent over were really low months. Maybe there's excessive negative days, overdraws, something you always need to pay attention to, okay? We need to find out, how many negative days have you had? How many overdraws are there per month, right? If it's more than 3 to 5, depending on what kind of lender you have, sometimes it's just any more than 2, they won't accept it. It's a dead deal. You've got to know these things, right? And you've got to be able to analyze bank statements, something we'll look at in another video. But you've got to pay attention to this stuff. In fact, I think we have shot a video in the past like that. You can look through our binary of endless videos, okay? But it's very, very important. So you will conduct worksheets. You will gather averages. You will take a look at what the actual revenue is, weighed against what the affordability is, weighed against what a payment schedule could look like based on the dollar amount they're asking for. You can do that on your calculator on the phone with the client. You can very much quickly figure out whether or not we have a deal on the table based on what they're asking for and how much money they're grossing a month. Good rule of thumb, you're grossing $100,000 a month, you want to borrow $100,000, all right, if those averages are close together. Right? I want $250,000. I'm grossing $50,000 a month. Next one. Right? So general rule of thumb. Okay, it's loose, but it gives you an idea. It gives you an idea. Okay. Do you accept and I want to stress, by the way, month to dates. You need a month to date statement if you're past the 10th day of the month. Right? And then at the end of funding, right before we fund the deal, the lender's going to do a bank login, or they are going to ask for a month-to-date statement. So if the client thinks they're getting away with the fast one because they just got funded 2 days ago, but they're not telling you or the lender, they're going to find out last second, and all of a sudden they're not going to fund the client because the client's lying. They just borrowed money, therefore they can't afford the money we're about to give them. right? Something to pay attention to. Okay? Does the client accept credit cards as a form of payment? Well, if 25% of the business or more is done in credit cards, we need those statements. Don't not ask that question. Don't ignore it because you don't think it's important. And then the lender asks that question, and now suddenly you have to go chase those bank credit card statements. Now it's going to take you 2 weeks to get them. What do you know? Somebody else funded the client because you took too long with docs. And the client got tired of talking to you because every time they talk to you, just ask for more and more documents. Conduct a proper survey up front. Know what you're looking at. Know what to ask for. Right? So, very important column. Do you currently have any merchant cash advances or loans? If yes, with whom? How much is outstanding and what are your payments? And it's not just merchant cash advances, it's term loans, whatever else. You're going to get the whole picture here, okay? But generally, high interest loans, right? Double digit interest rates, right? The bank loans, don't worry about so much, right? But the mortgage, don't really worry about. We're paying attention to high interest loans, cash advances, term loans, things of that nature, okay? Don't just ask, I got 100 grand. Okay, I got a monthly payment. Okay, or a daily or a weekly. Okay, and you write that down and move on. That's not enough information. How much were you funded? What was the funded amount? What was the payback? What's the payment frequency? Is it daily, weekly, monthly? Find out, because if it's a daily, maybe they'll take a daily. If it's a weekly and they hate dailies and you come back with a daily payment, they're not going to take your offer. If it's only monthlies, they won't accept a daily or weekly, but they're not going to qualify because they already have a few loans. If they have 2 or 3 loans, they're not going to get a month, or even 2 loans. They're not going to get a monthly payment in the third position, that third loan. It's not going to happen, right? So know if it's worth your time, right? What's the term? How long is it? Is it 6 months? Is it 12 months? Do they hate the short term? Do they want the long term? Do they want 2 years? Do they want 10 years? You got to understand that. And you got to understand that based on what they currently have. We need a proper debt schedule, but don't wait for it. Have that debt schedule in front of you. Fill it out for the client. Gather that information on the phone. Work the numbers for yourself, okay? Because the reality is we can't pay off. If they have positions and they want to get them paid off, positions meaning loans, right? The first loan they got is the first position. The second loan they got, the second position. The third loan, so on and so forth, right? Understand that if they want to consolidate all that stuff, right, or they want to pay it off, if they just got funded a month ago, they got $90,000, they're not even they're not even close to paying off the principal plus interest. Not even close. We can't pay off unless they're halfway through their term, right? And the most any lender will allow monthly payments is 16 to 18% of their monthly gross. So if they're grossing $100,000 a month and they're paying $16,000 to $18,000 a month, and that's generous. Usually lenders might be 14%, 15%. Not always going to go up to 18%, right? But if they're grossing $100,000 a month and 16, 18 grand is coming out of their bank account and they're not halfway through their terms or whatever it is, you can't pay off those positions and let them net the rest. You can't do that, right? If he borrowed $50,000 and he paid off halfway through the term and he's got $25,000 roughly left over, yeah, okay, we can give you another 50 grand. We'll pay off 25. You can net the other 25 and on you go. But you need to know whether or not that's realistic, if it can even happen in the first place. It's very important, okay? So we can only consolidate the amount you can afford to borrow is the bottom line, okay? And so you need to be able to work the math. Now, there's a few formulas to help you here, okay? And you can use this on your calculator to understand how much is coming out of their monthly gross. Okay, so understand how many business days there are in the month. On average, there's 21. In the week, there's 5. Okay, so here's a few formulas for you to work to figure out what their weekly payment would be, their monthly payment, and their daily payment. Ultimately, what you want to do is total up the payment amounts per loan up to a monthly amount, and then add it all up. Right? So if they have 3 loans, but one's a daily, one's a weekly, one's a monthly, well, you need to figure out what the daily adds up to in the week and then adds up to in the month to get the month total. Same thing for the weekly. You need to figure out what the weekly adds up to in the month to get the monthly total. And you need to add up all 3 monthly totals to understand how much is coming out a month. And you need to weigh that against their revenue. Right? So if they're grossing $100,000 a month and that adds up to $25,000, well, that's 25% of their monthly gross. That's beyond 16 to 18% of their monthly gross. We can't help them. They're over leveraged. Right? So maybe you've been doing this before. You're a broker. You've done this before, right? You think, and this is all news to you. You don't know what you're doing. Okay, a little bit of tough love there, but it's the truth. And this is just one phase. Even if they get past this, now you have to be able to read financials. You have to be able to spot fraud, spot stop payments, find loans. They're not going to tell you the truth all the time. Oh yeah, I got a loan with Fast Capital or whatever, right? Blue Capital. They gave me a weekly payment. I don't know what the term was. It was like 75 grand. That's not enough information. Then you go through the bank statements. They have 5 different loans. You need to be able to figure this stuff out for yourself. It's not enough to collect the application. It's not enough to collect the bank statements. Good news is, here at Ion, we've been through it. We have the scars to prove it. We can help you expedite this journey so that you possess this information, so that you're fast, on point. You know what you're talking about. You know what you're doing. You're disqualifying the masses. You're focusing on the gold, the ones that are going to make you money. You're filling up your book of business with good data, good connections. Before you know it, you are regularly funding deals all the time. You have your business from yesterday, business today, and business tomorrow, all adding up together. Referrals, renewals, you name it. That's how brokers make their money, right? That's how you can make your money. But you have to follow those who have done it before and are making money doing it right now. And that's us at Ion. All right. So anyway, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. If you like what you see, you want to learn more, go ahead and click that subscribe button below. Anytime we upload a video, you will be notified as long as you turn on notifications. You can visit ioncapitalsolutions.com to learn more. Anyway, thanks everybody. We'll catch you in the next one.